And the paper, which you can see in the references from the NSA, which talks about this topic very good. So I think it would last too long to talk about this in more detail now. Okay, and finally, infrastructure protection. So we were talking about infrastructures before, and you asked me about the BSI, what they are doing there in this context. So there are some instances in every state which do critical infrastructure protection. So nearly all industrialized countries have set up or are setting up centers for critical infrastructure protections that keep relationships between each other as well as with law enforcement, intelligence, infrastructure owners and operators, and other diverse instances. The aim is to provide timely and relevant information about rising threats and general IT security issues. And just as an example, New Zealand's critical infrastructure protection centers functions are divided into 3 main groups, which are a 24/7 watch and warn function, investigation and analysis function, and an outreach and training broking function. Okay, so taking this into account, we know the background. So let's see what this is all about. It's pretty hard to find information about information operations, unclassified information. So what I had to do is I asked experts from different organizations and for their opinion about main threat sources, actual trends, I/O weapons, and the countermeasures. And during the project, other people with diverse occupation and backgrounds were asked about particular aspects to adjust at extensive findings. And then, to see how it works in the out there, I used a case study to gather practical insights. But as you can imagine, it's pretty hard to find companies who say, okay, no problem, come to us and try what you can find out. So, and also most people in high positions do not want to talk about the weaknesses within their organization. But fortunately, one CIO in a small financial services organization participated. And I wanted to do some field experiments, which goes a little bit further than case studies, but this approach was likely to raise ethical and legal issues, so this was not possible. Yep.
What would be a potential experiment scenario for you? So what do we have to imagine if you say you want to start an experiment in this field? Establish a threat and just let it loose on an organization, looks what it does with it?
You could do, for example, penetration tests in a sector-wide basis, so not within an organization or even within an organization, but more likely inter-organizational penetration testing. So also between different sectors. So, for example, what happens if the telecommunication sector is attacked? Which financial institutions have problems by this? And so you actually would start offensive information operations and see what happens. But you can imagine that this would raise ethical and legal issues. So, and if you go to a company and say, okay, I just want to start an experiment, they either say no or they say yes, and then it's pretty likely that you don't have the original circumstances if they agree. So this is pretty hard, and from a research perspective, yeah, not really possible. So, in order to ensure confidentiality, the names of the interviewees and the organizations are not included in the presentation. So, let's come to the research results. So, when I went through the presentation before, I went through the background section a little bit quicker, but they told me that I can talk a little bit longer, so thanks. So, the results of my research. First, I talked about the threat sources. And foreign organizations and governments, including the intelligence community, are already equipped with or actually establishing industrial or economic espionage capabilities. Even though attacks from those sources typically aim on the targets, on other targets, it is obvious that the FSS, financial services sector, handles sensitive information, especially from a privacy perspective. So threats arising from those sources are currently not usually considered, even though the impact, especially on confidentiality and availability, can be immense in time of crisis. So just imagine there's a war and you want to attack a country. You normally can start I.O. and you don't have to do any physical destruction. I mean, this is critical from some perspectives. So, firstly, you can save lives, of course, but the impact on the health of the country can be pretty bad. So, this is pretty controversial. But I don't want to talk too much about ethical issues. So we have also attacks from terrorists, and business continuity can generally be guaranteed in the event of such an attack. But when an attack is successfully accomplished, it might result in public attention, leading to fear within the population, indirect consideration of terrorist political, ideological, or social intentions, and or negative repudiation for financial services organizations. Then we have criminal groups. They generally attack the weakest link, the customer, for purpose of monetary gain. They are dangerous in sense of indirect vulnerabilities, especially through phishing and malicious software. So those methods normally aim on authentication information, yeah, those indirect vulnerabilities are not directly I.O. related, so I won't discuss this exhaustively. But kind of interesting is that the methods of those criminal groups are getting better and better. So just an example, phishing emails are not simple broadcasts anymore. They are normally well targeted by compromised private data, and yeah, but yeah, as I said, it's not really I.O. related. So more interesting are mercenaries and insiders. So I.O. attacks performed by insiders can generally be seen as very dangerous. So, and mercenaries can act remotely or masquerade as insiders, utilizing compromised employee or administration accounts. And the risk of insider attacks worsens when mercenaries are employed by an organization in the FSS so that they can act as legitimized insiders. You can imagine if mercenaries are well prepared and have the right knowledge, they can cause a lot of harm in the role of an insider. Therefore, mercenaries can be declared as the most dangerous threat source. And yeah, as I mentioned before, mercenaries in the role of an insider are the most dangerous threat source. And yeah, also criminal groups, foreign organizations, governments, and terrorists are likely to hire mercenaries or to develop professional in-house capabilities. Current trends. Let's talk about the trends. Outsourcing is a very controversial trend. As I mentioned before, you have to think about the contract, the outsourcing contract. So normally it might enhance the general security of an organization due to better transparency in terms of cost and security aims. And security policy becomes an integral part of the contract. But on the other hand, there may be implementation and technology failure risks, or you have a more complex business continuity planning. And from a concentration perspective, you have a lack of control and a systematic risk to the industry as a whole. So, open source software was mostly seen as a positive influence on security. And open source products are seen to be more secure than closed source software, not only because of the possibility to verify the source code of applications and OS features on critical systems, but also because of the possibility to enhance open source products by further development. So one interviewee mentioned that in some cases, the basic authentication module was enhanced by including smart card capabilities on top of the basic password authentication. The same possibility exists for biometric authentication mechanisms. The use of the internet is essential to provide customer services as well as to perform transaction and collaboration. But unfortunately, most of the attacks come from the internet, and this makes it necessary to have sufficient countermeasures in place. And the increasing adoption of remote connections can be dangerous, especially, and this happens in a lot of cases, if devices are compromised or connected to the internet and the corporate network at the same time. So in this constellation, there's a substantial risk that malicious software can spread, especially if no network security measures are in place. And one interviewee mentioned that a large FSS organization directly connects its remote workplaces per dial-up to the corporate network without any other countermeasures in place. So this is kind of dangerous. And you also have implementation flaws in short-range links, such as Bluetooth, which can result in large quantities of confidential data loss. And just imagine that there's a big building with a lot of mobile devices which communicate via Bluetooth, and an attacker is about 2 kilometers with the right equipment further and collects all those information from the mobile devices. I mean, yeah, I don't want to have, I wouldn't like to have all my mobile contacts or something in the hands of attackers. So also you have M-payment mechanisms which are still not secure enough to face a trust issue of customers. And most e-commerce payment methods are not cannot be adapted to M-payment. So, and on the other, and also location-based services raise further concerns, especially from a privacy perspective. So, if we see the trends, we can say mobile computing is a very important trend, but unfortunately the trend with the most security issues. And just to name some concerns: user identification, secure storage, secure data communication, tamper-resistant implementations, secure software execution, secure network access, and secure content. And this affects device security, network and session security, and application and payment security. You have a lot of concerns and a lot of attack points in mobile computing. And it also has an influence on several other trends.